Tyler Shough's impressive and promising performance against the Carolina Panthers has quickly quieted some of the NFL draft talk, but the big question is whether or not it'll last. We got all of that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, the New Orleans Saints draft class in 2025 continues to be promising. The Saints run game got going a bit in the first three quarters against the Carolina Panthers last week, and a lot of it had to do with the blocking up front. And we'll get everything started and kick everything off in today's episode with the Tyler Shough, Fernando Mendoza debate right now, favoring Tyler Shough and whether or not that will last. We got all that coming up for you on today's episode. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time being here with us this time, making it your first listen and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 podcast network. It means the world to us. All of your support. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers, you get $300 in bonus bets by winning your first $5 bet. Head over to FanDuel.com to get started. The New Orleans Saints have moved from being the #1 overall selection to being in line for the #2 overall selection, thanks to a win in Carolina led by rookie quarterback Tyler Shough, and that has quickly quieted some of the NFL draft conversation for this upcoming year. The New Orleans Saints, all of a sudden, or a team where the fan base isn't talking as much about, hey, Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson and what's going on with some of the other quarterbacks in the 2026 NFL draft class, which has shockingly become a disappointing class out of nowhere, thanks to the performances or lack thereof of guys like Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik, Lenora Sellers, and others. And so the conversation is now, can the Saints build around Tyler Shough in the NFL draft? And look, there's a lot of things that I love about the New Orleans Saints fan base. First of all, it's a fan base that I've been a part of and that I've gotten to participate with and everything like that over the course of my lifetime. But outside of that it's a very passionate fan base that very quickly rallies behind its guy. And Tyler Shough looked like a guy, at least, or more than just a guy, at least, up against the Carolina Panthers with an impressive performance, throwing for 282 yards, a couple of touchdowns, leading this team to finally converting on 3rd and long and 3rd downs as a whole, risk-taking, pushing the ball downfield, all the things that make the NFL game exciting. You saw Tyler Shough bring to this Carolina Panthers game and to this New Orleans Saints team in week 10. Now they're going to the bye week, and so you don't get to ride out that momentum, but the momentum is finding its way elsewhere. I'm watching a lot of Saints fans right now go to battle for Tyler Shough, and I love it. I think it's great. Like, it's great to see invigoration and promise and all these other things. But the big question around the performance is it real, right? I think the Carolina Panthers are a good team, a good defense, even though I'm now all of a sudden being told that they're not because the Saints beat them. But before that, they were a really good team and they were second in the NFC South and they just beat the Packers and they were a promising team, but now all of a sudden they're not. It's funny how those things change so quickly. But as the goalposts shift and move, the question will then be, can the Saints continue to find ways to impress? Can Tyler Shough continue to find ways to deliver promise? And that's one of the reasons right now that we're not talking about Fernando Mendoza. We're not talking about Ty Simpson and the Alabama Crimson Tide. I was ready. I had all the notes to come in and start talking about those guys here during the bye week. But after Tyler Shough's performance, it felt disingenuous. And that's a good feeling to have, I'm sure, for a Saints fan that's wanting this team to find its quarterback. And will Tyler Shough be the guy? We don't know yet, but he's proven so far, at least, that he is starting a conversation, right? That he can be the guy in 2026, at least. And then the Saints can reevaluate quarterback after that. And then it opens up the NFL draft to opportunities to build around that quarterback or to build up the defense over on the opposite side. You're going to hear me talk about linebacker out of Ohio State, Arvell Reese, all offseason. I've never given it up. Like, that's the guy to me. That is the best draft pick in this class and the most talented player in this class. And if Tyler Shough continues to perform well enough, the Saints could be in position to invest their first round draft pick in that player, as opposed to trying to make sure that they can get up far enough to draft a quarterback or hold on to the number 1 overall pick. Now, of course, it gets challenging because the better that Tyler Shough performs, the worse potentially that their draft position becomes. But you're okay with that, because if your draft position is getting worse because you're winning games, and you're winning games because of your quarterback, we're in an entirely different mode of conversation around the New Orleans Saints since Drew Brees retired, basically. And I'm not comparing the Saints now to where they were with Drew Brees. They will never be that team again. And when they do find success again, they will be a different type of team, and they will find success for a different reason than the reasons that they found success with Drew Brees, because Drew Brees is one of one. But for the New Orleans Saints, who are looking to move ahead now into their next era, into their new era, finding success, winning football games, and doing so under the leadership of Kellen Moore and the building blocks they have added to this organization, particularly in the 2025 draft class, which we'll highlight here in a little bit, it begins with Tyler Shough, and it begins at the quarterback position. And so as long as Tyler Shough is performing well enough to keep NFL draft quarterback conversation at bay, that's a good thing for New Orleans. It's a good thing for the team to feel like, hey, he might be the guy. And at least enough, like, you're not looking for, at least I'm not, looking for Tyler Shough to prove anything beyond his viability for 2026 in the next 7 games. You're not going to look at the next 7 games and say, okay, yes, he's a franchise quarterback, or he's a 10 plus year, quarterback for this team. That's unwarranted an expectation to try to pick up in so few games. What you need to do is by the end, or what he needs to do is by the end of these 7 games, prove that he can be the guy for 2026, and then prove he can be the guy beyond 2026 in 2026. And one of the best ways to do that is to play this team in position to where they're not drafting your replacement, they're drafting your weapons. They're drafting the defensive pieces that are getting the ball back to you. And so Tyler Shough has kind of a twofold charge towards the end of the season to perform as best as possible. Really threefold, because number one, first and foremost, always in the NFL is you want to win football games as a player. There's no doubt about that. You want to win football games as a player. Number two, you're winning the team away from the draft pick that could replace you. And number three, you're winning the team into a sense of security where they can build around you as opposed to being concerned about building in place of you. And so how quickly the conversation has changed around the 2026 NFL draft surrounding the New Orleans Saints is not lost and should not be lost on anybody. It's a great thing to see that the Saints all of a sudden have some level of optimism, even if it's brief for right now. We got to see how he performs against Atlanta, how he performs the rest of the season. We could be talking very differently in the next couple of weeks here. But at least as of right now, the optimism is a good thing to see. It's a little bit of a palate cleanse from what we've seen over the course of the past couple of years. For the New Orleans Saints, though, the run game has to get going after the bye week. And the Saints might have figured something out up against the Carolina Panthers, and it's all thanks to their offensive line. Let's get to that next. We continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Right now, the days are getting shorter, the nights are coming earlier, and that can make everything feel a little heavier, especially when you're already kind of stacked up in life with work, family, and everything else. This season, it's so important to reach out and check in, whether you're checking in on family, friends, or even yourself. And checking in on yourself can make a real difference. It's why I absolutely recommend reaching out to therapists. That's where BetterHelp comes in. It makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online wherever you are. It's one of my favorite things about BetterHelp. Everything is super convenient and tailored to fit your schedule. And this month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple for you to take that first step. And listeners get 10% off their first month by heading over to BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Because taking the step forward to find support might just leave you wondering, why didn't I do it sooner? All right, family, the New Orleans Saints run game finally felt like it started to get a little bit more momentum after a long drought of not hitting over 100 rushing yards. And really, the offensive line had a lot to do with it, especially in quarters 1 through 3, before the Saints kind of changed up what their game plan was. So we'll dive into all this here as we continue on with today's episode. Once again, I want to thank you very much for helping to make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. It means the world to us and could not do it without you. Thank you for your continued support, even through the dark days here on Locked On Saints, as we've been covering a not so great team, but a team that finally showed some promise up against the Carolina Panthers. And one of the reasons why they were able to do that was being able to do things like run the clock out at the end of the game and be able to hold on and create some longer drives and be able to run the football. All of these things were really, really important here so far for this team. So I wanted to dive into some of the things that made it work. And the first thing that I'll highlight is actually the offensive line. Now, to be fair, the Saints only created 0.72 yards before contact. So they're still not getting any push up front on the offensive line, but they also didn't get walked back as much as we've seen throughout the years so far in the run game on the offensive line. Whatever adjustments TJ Paganetti and the New Orleans Saints offensive staff have made when it comes to the run game, or maybe the coaching, maybe it was the fundamentals just kind of set in, right? I heard Demario Davis before the game, tell everybody alignment, assignment, and technique. And I'll be honest with you, when I heard that that was the pregame speech before the game up against the Carolina Panthers, I was like, goodness, they've gone from hyping each other up to reminding each other of the fundamentals in pregame speeches. That's not a good sign, but shut up, Ross. It worked out great. And some of what we saw in terms of that, we saw on the offensive line as well, not getting walked back, not getting beat to the punch, not getting beat to the point of attack in the run game, allowing the running backs to go out there and pick up some yards after contact as well. So I want to highlight some of the other things that really work. So look, the Saints averaged under 4 yards per carry all told in this game. I'm very, very aware of that. But it is worth mentioning that 16 of this team's 37 rushes all came in the fourth quarter, with the majority of them happening in that last 7-minute and 35-second drive to wrap up the game. So keep that in mind. If we look at just quarters 1 through 3, they averaged more than 4 yards per carry during that time. And so before the Taysom Hill game plan got exhausted at the end of the game, where they were just running and sort of pounding the middle of the defense and doing all that, before any of that happened, this team was running effectively early. A couple of 10-plus yard runs early on in the game as well. Some extensions of the run game, the screen to Alvin Kamara, certain things like that also working. And so all but 3 of their 16 fourth quarter rushes happened in that last 7-minute and 35-second drive or whatever it was. And so I want to highlight that. Like, the Saints average tanked because of that drive while they were running incrementally a little bit at a time, picking up first down after first down after first down to run the clock out. That wasn't a situation to where this team ran for less than 4 yards per carry the entire game. In fact, actually, at one point in the first quarter, the Saints averaged 5+ yards after contact alone in the first quarter. In the third quarter, they were over 3 yards after contact per carry as well. So we saw the running backs be able to fight through contact, not go down on first contact, certainly in the first and third quarters in particular. We saw a little bit of a weaker run game in the second quarter, but the fourth quarter, everything gets diminished because the averages were down because the Saints were just trying to be physical and play a physical game and run the clock out. And they actually did that to success. The Saints actually faced the 9th most stacked boxes in the NFL, or the 9th highest stacked box percentage. It's 8 or more defenders in the box. Now, a lot of that, again, happens because of the fourth quarter in that game. But despite the fact that they had the 9th most stacked box percent, or 9th highest stacked box percentage in the NFL, they had the 7th lowest stuff percentage. So they were still able to go out there and pick up the yards that they needed. And so that's another thing to where I commend the offensive line, because it is among the best that we've seen the offensive line play so far. Now, don't get me wrong, the Carolina Panthers are not world enders in terms of their run defense. They have a pretty good interior defensive line with Derek Brown and Tershawn Wharton out there, but they don't have the edge rushers. They don't have the talented linebackers, things like that. Like, I get it. I understand the competition that they were going up against, but we've also seen the Saints struggle against lesser competition to move the ball on the ground. So for them to come in and pick up those rushing yards and be able to run more effectively without it being, a bunch of yards by the quarterback or a big breakaway run by Taysom Hill. Instead, you saw Alvin Kamara get free. You saw Devin Neal get free on a couple of rushes. Now, this team still has not had a running back rush for over 30 yards since like 2022 or 2023. Like, it's still been a matter of years for them on a single play to have a real breakaway run. And so the home run hitting that was promised with this run game has not been here yet so far this season, and wasn't there against Carolina either. So it's not to say that this rushing game doesn't have strides to make. It absolutely does. It's been one of the most disappointing pieces to this New Orleans Saints 2025 season thus far. But with the bye week and an opportunity to self-scout, and knowing Kellen Moore's track record in terms of self-scouting and getting the run game going after bye weeks, this is an opportunity for New Orleans. So it was good to see some promise from the run game against Carolina. And it was good to see them be able to lean on the run game to help ice the game and put it away. I kind of wish you wouldn't have had to take Tyler Shough off the field to do that, but that's a personal preference. That's maybe not shared. Maybe not an opinion that's shared by a lot of people, but you were able to get it done. You were able to lean on the run game when you needed to put the game away, and you were able to mix in the run game all throughout the game. Still 21 rushes in the first 3 quarters. We haven't seen a ton of that from New Orleans. It was the 37 total rushes in this game was a season high, or one of the season highs. And so we saw the Saints be able to do that. But now you want to see this run game be able to create some of the home runs, create some of the breakaways, create some of the big plays that Kellen Moore's offenses are typically known to be able to produce. And so that's got to be next on the list after the bye week. So a good start here in terms of the Saints improving their run game and the way that the offensive line helped. I genuinely believe that Dillon Radunz is a better choice at left guard for the run game than Trevor Penning was. I do believe that has helped. And I do believe that you can look at the games that Trevor Penning was in, and you can look at the games that Dillon Radunz was in, and look at the plus minus in rushing yards, and it's very, very clear that there's an impact there. And we saw Devin Neal's nice run going over to the left side of the offensive line. And so something is starting there, and hopefully they'll get Taliesin Fuanga back after the bye week as well. And so something can continue there, but it's a good start for New Orleans here coming out of this game against the Carolina Panthers. Now for the next 7 games, of course, that run game gets to be under the microscope because now you need the breakaway runs. You need the home runs. Let's see if they can find those. Coming up next, the New Orleans Saints draft class for 2025 continues to be very, very promising. Let's get to that next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by friends over at Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on some new repairs, get your team moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts of your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the trusted brands that you know and love across the business. They also have real-time inventory and honest lead times as well to make sure that you're not punting on projects, while they have that industry-leading customer service that always has your blind side covered as well. Join the free Trade Master program today to get some serious perks that includes priority shipping, lower prices, and of course, that awesome dedicated support line. You can find that over at supplyhouse.com, and you can sign up for free and use the promo code SHNFL5. Use the number 5. That's 5% off of your first order as well at supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Today's episode of Locked On Saints also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the beginning of the game, you can still get in on a couple of different things thanks to FanDuel's live betting module, which is one of my favorite features that you can find over at FanDuel. Everything from the next player to score, to fourth quarter comeback, all of that. You can even put those together in a same game parlay so you get a shot at an even bigger payout. Nobody does it better than FanDuel. Right now, the New Orleans Saints 3.5-point underdogs at home up against the Atlanta Falcons after the bye week. Maybe get a chance to get a look at the Atlanta Falcons this weekend and then decide whether or not you think that the Saints can pull off the upset at home. they'll be taking on the Carolina Panthers that the Saints just beat in Carolina. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. So head over to FanDuel.com today to get started and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints rookie class of 2025 has shown a lot of promise so far here throughout the beginning of the season. And I wanted to take a moment to just kind of highlight and look at a few of the players that have already played themselves into some premier roles, right? The Saints right now have a few rookie starters. Offensive lineman Kelvin Banks Jr., who has looked awesome here down the stretch. He's allowed the second, well, I'll get into that in a moment. But so he's got, Kelvin Banks Jr. came in as a starting left tackle. Tyler Shough is now the starting quarterback for the team. Jonas Sanker, third round pick, is a starting safety for the team. Danny Stutzman, fourth round pick, is getting involved a lot over on the defensive side. Quincy Riley has moved into a starting role at corner on the outside of the defense. And then you also have, he was a fifth round pick, a fourth round pick. And then you also have Devin Neal, the running back that is now the second running back next to Alvin Kamara, that's seeing the majority of the carries there. Vernon Broughton is on injured reserve. Moliki Matavao as well as Fadil Diggs are on the practice squad as seventh round picks. But for the most part, like the Saints have right now 4 starters and 2 potential contributors, one of which already a primary contributor in Devin Neal. And so far, so good when it comes to the Saints draft class. But let's contextualize things a little bit more as well. Right now, did you know that Tyler Shough has the second highest NFL passer rating amongst the entire 2025 draft class of quarterbacks? The only quarterback better than his 84.7 passer rating is Jackson Dart at 93.5. Want to see that passer rating tick up a little bit. Only 2 games in. We'll see which way the passer rating goes after that. But it's not just that. He also has the second highest big time throw percentage in his class. He also has the lowest turnover worthy percentage, lower than Jackson Dart, lower than Dillon Gabriel, lower than Cam Ward, who are the players that have seen the meaningful amount of snaps at the position coming out of this rookie class. And right now, his completion percentage of 61.4% is better than Dillon Gabriel in Cleveland and better than Cam Ward in Tennessee. And so right now, it's not to say that Tyler Shough is a better quarterback than any of those players, but as of right now, he's shaping up well, and he compares to the rest of his class really, really well so far. So things trending in the right direction early on for Tyler Shough. We'll see how things go as they move forward. Now, as for Kelvin Banks Jr., looking at the season-wide numbers, 31 pressures surrendered so far by Kelvin Banks Jr. That is the second most amongst his draft class, with Josh Connerly being up there. But here's where the difference is. Josh Connerly has also allowed 6 sacks. Will Campbell, former LSU Tiger, go Tigers, over with the New England Patriots, has allowed 5 sacks. Right now, Kelvin Banks Jr. has allowed 3 sacks, one of which early on in the season, 2 in week 8, so 2 not too long ago. So want to see him continue to move forward. But his performance, a 1 pressure performance allowed up against the Carolina Panthers, I had to remember what city they were, or what state they were from. Carolina Panthers is pretty promising so far. And he had a really, really solid display up against Carolina. Then you look at some of these other younger guys that are seeing some opportunities like Quincy Riley. Quincy Riley has become a starting outside cornerback and right now has a 21% forced incompletion percentage right now amongst all defensive players, not just corners, but all rookie defensive players. That's top 10. Amongst all rookie corners, or rather all rookie defensive backs, that puts Quincy Riley at number 7 when it comes to forced incompletion percentage. Now, he's allowing some yardage, right? 158 yards allowed so far. That's not nearly in the top of the class. Guys like Upton Stout sitting at 345. He's a slot corner, so you're going to see a lot of yards allowed in those situations. But pretty solid play so far from Quincy Riley, who of course also has an interception on the season. Now, Jonas Sanker is another that has performed well. His 1 interception is also in there. The most interceptions by a rookie defensive back so far this season has been 2. So both Jonas Sanker and Quincy Riley well within the conversation there. Right now, Jonas Sanker has a 20% forced incompletion percentage. So right behind Quincy Riley at number 7 amongst all rookie DBs is Jonas Sanker at number 8. And we know Jonas Sanker as well has been an outstanding tackler for this team, going and making some of those big run stops over on the defensive side as well. Safety play, a little bit more all around than cornerback play, to where you're not just looking at coverage there. Sanker has made some big impact when it comes to all of those positions as well. Then you add on top of that what it is that these other Saints rookies have simply been able to add for the season. Devin, Neal coming in, and in his couple of games where he's gotten real opportunities, he's put together a pretty solid season so far, averaging 4.3 yards per attempt. I think they should give him the ball more, personally. A 60% success rate when he runs the football. That's really, really good, despite the fact that he's only got 43 rushing yards so far on the year. And he's also reeled in 7 receptions for 21 yards, adding a couple of first downs in his play. Now, obviously, he is still very, very early in the opportunities that he's going to see and the opportunities that he's going to get, but he is still somebody that has moved into a contributing role already for this team. Danny Stutzman already sitting with a total combined 28 tackles for the team, despite the fact that he hasn't played a ton of snaps. He's appeared in quite a few games, but his snap percentage over on the defensive side is 10%. 10%. He's played 63 snaps. In this last game, he appeared for 6 snaps and he had 6 tackles, or he had 2 tackles. Like, this is a guy that has been, like, when he's on the field, he's making an impact. So good to see the contributions there. You can see the high level stuff from guys like Quincy Riley, Jonas, Sanker, lately from Kelvin Banks Jr., Tyler Shough early on, and his exposure as well. But then you can see the bud of contribution coming from some of these other younger players as well. So far, a lot of success from this a lot of promise from this 2025 draft class. All right, fam, time for a little bit of lanyap here. This is actually something I meant to put in yesterday's episode, and then I just got overwhelmed with all the things that I was already talking about. But I wanted to highlight Alontae Taylor up against Bryce Young, because this is now becoming a career situation. Alontae Taylor, if all of his games were against Bryce Young, Alontae Taylor might be the best nickel corner in the NFL. And he already plays like a top nickel corner in the league, but he would undoubtedly be the best nickel corner in the NFL. Here's how we know that. And this is funny to me, because a couple years ago, it was Baker Mayfield. He got his extension with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Alontae Taylor quote tweeted that back when he had an active Twitter account. And he quote tweeted the extension announcement and said, "Hey, yes, sir, it's my favorite quarterback," right? One of my favorite quarterbacks. And he called Baker Mayfield one of his favorite quarterbacks because that's who he got his first career interception against, if you remember. And I think that if Baker Mayfield was one of Alontae Taylor's favorite quarterbacks, Bryce Young is Alontae Taylor's favorite quarterback. Here's why. 5 games that these two have gone up against one another so far. Got his first interception against Bryce Young just last week. 5 pressures, 8 passes defended, 3 sacks. And remember, all those came in one game at the beginning of last year. He's got quite a few pressures and hits on him as well. He's allowing just a 64.7% completion percentage when Bryce Young targets him. And he's allowing just 8.9 yards per reception when those receptions are allowed. He's allowed 22 catches against Bryce Young, only 1 for a touchdown. He also forced a fumble and has 6 tackles for a loss against the Panthers offense as a whole. And so for me, I get why Baker Mayfield is one of Alontae Taylor's favorite quarterbacks, but I think Bryce Young might be his favorite quarterback. All right, coming up in tomorrow's episode, the number one thing I want to see the New Orleans Saints improve down the stretch. Don't forget, you can catch us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every day as well. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me on the show. If you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know the family's doing, how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.